What's up, everybody? I'm Lance Chandler. This week we're going to talk about your product and how to get it ready and how you're going to start out by getting into the studio and what it's going to be like. So keep watching. Alright guys, so understand that a lot of you don't understand the whole process of getting started and making an album, so that's what we're going to talk about this week. It can sometimes be a little intimidating, it can be very hard, and 99% of the time, most times, you have a good product ready to go. You have a great album written. Your talents are great. I'm sure you're doing shows. I'm sure you're booking events and you're out there singing in front of people and your band are playing in front of people, but you don't know how to put that to album, how to reach that next market and how to make that happen. So step one, you need to find a studio you like. Now there's various types of studio, from low-end home studios where you have your friends and an inbox or a 2-track recorder that's going into your computer. You have studios like that where you can just record in the closet. You have your mid-level studios, which is more like mine that I have. It's 16 tracks of recording and a little bit more complex, but you still get great sounds and it's still kind of a small environment, very intimate. Then you have your big level studios like for example Blackbird in Nashville or Soundstage, with those studios, and those are big time. Those are massive consoles, tons of outboard gear, high-end engineers and producers that are going to make your product sound amazing. Now your money varies when you go from level to level like that. It's little to nothing when you have a friend or someone that's trying to get started like you are, to record in their bedroom or in their bonus room and track things in the closet and get the 2-track going and do it a piece at a time. I've had friends that have done that have been very successful, and that's going to be fairly cheap, if not free sometimes, and it's just friends helping friends. Mid-level studios are going to range you anywhere from $25 an hour all the way up to about $100 to $150 an hour. It just depends on their equipment and what they have. Most of the time for that, it's going to not be too expensive. It's going to be more in your budget on starting up, and you're still going to have a really professional quality sound when it's all said and done. The higher end studios, I mean, they usually do, in Nashville, they do like 3-hour blocks typically, and you can book out whole days as well. A whole day in Nashville is going to range, it just depends on what studio you're in, about $1,000 to $3,000 for the entire day. So it can be very costly, and you got to really be ready to work and really get things knocked out if you're going to do that. Most people, when they book out a place like that, they try to track it all in one day, unless you are signed to a record label or you have a big budget that you can continue to track for like a whole week in there. But it costs a lot of money to do things like that. So you just figure out what's in your budget. It's not one size fits all. It's really you got to figure out what fits you best. So that's step one, is getting your studio time booked. Step two is finding out who's going to produce your album. Are you going to produce your own album? It takes a lot to produce an album, and people don't really realize what that contains, or what the concept of producing an album would really be. Albums are very complex whenever you're trying to make something that sounds great and you're trying to get noticed. So a producer that you're going to hire is going to be able to book your time, book your musicians if you need extra ones, book your engineer, anything you need. That is what that producer is doing. That producer is figuring out your time frame of when you're ever going to release this album, where you're going to be at for marketing that album. So literally, that's the person that keeps everybody in check and keeps it all glued together. That's the head honcho. Your engineer is a really, really important thing too. You want to make sure you have a good engineer, somebody that you trust, because you can have the best producers in the world, but if you don't have the best engineer or somebody that's comparable to your sound, then you can really not get what you're looking for. You need to find somebody that understands your goals and where you're trying to end up by the end of your project. Step three to all this, when it's all said and done, you're going to go into the studio and you're going to start tracking and recording. You can go in there. Most people, when they're on a tight budget, they have everything done, ready to go, and they just go in and they play it, record it, they rehearse before they even go in there. They know what they want to do. They switch some things up on the fly when they're working, but for the most part, they already know what they're going to do. They go in there and they knock it out because they're on a tight budget. They need to get it done and get it done fast. So in most cases, starting up, which might be you, that would be the way you want to go. Is have it rehearsed, figure out everything you want, every part that you want to have in it, and you need to just go in there and get it done and get it done efficiently. Some people hire an artist or more accomplished artists that have a big bankroll that can't afford to book out whole weeks and stuff like that. They get inspired by the studio, and sometimes they don't even start writing certain things until they go into the studio. A lot of hit songs are not even thought of or written until you're literally in the studio. So that's another thing to think about too, and what to expect when you're in there. Now when you're in there, it's going to be fast paced. You need to have an idea of how it works. You need to have an idea of vocal comping, takes, how to move quickly and efficiently, how to keep things in tune. You need to pay attention to all that stuff because you're going to want to get your money's worth out of your time when you're in there. So you need to really focus on all that stuff when you're in there. If the engineer or the producer is telling you, do it again, take another take, we're going to do it one more time, I say that all the time to people I'm recording. We're going to do it one more time, and I say it like 3 or 4 times on the same parts because we're looking for something that we're not hearing yet, or you're in rapid fire mode and we know we're getting great stuff from you and we're getting different emotions every time you sing that. So when you have a good engineer that you're working with or a good producer, they're hearing that stuff, and it's not necessarily that you're doing a bad job. So don't ever get discouraged whenever you're in a studio and somebody's asking you to do something, unless they say it. Some people can be mean, so if they're being mean, when that happens. But unless they say it in a mean way, but 9 times out of 10, they are just looking for a certain sound that you're either yet to give, that they know you can give, or they've heard it before and it wasn't exactly how they wanted it, so they keep doing it again until they hear the one you want. And sometimes it just comes down to having plenty of takes so you have something to comp in there. Now, vocal comping is something where you sing a lot of parts over and over and over and over, sing the whole song over and over, and they take the best parts of that. So you take those and you comp them down. So that's a very important thing. And you always have to remember that everything you do in that studio is not going to be like perfect by the time you're done. It's going to take a lot of mixing and a lot of engineering and a lot of time to go in and fix everything the way you want it to sound to make it sound amazing. So don't be discouraged if you come out of the booth, they crank it up wide open and it just sounds kind of like plain. Because 9 times out of 10, there's very few effects. There's just maybe a reverb on the vocals and a little bit of compression on some drums here and there, and not a whole lot of effects going into it. So that really comes in the mixing part, which brings me to my next part. Find a good mixing engineer that you want to go with. Find somebody that's accustomed to working with your sound, or somebody that's all around just got a good reputation. So mixing is probably the most important part of your song. At the end of the day, it comes down to that final mix and what it's going to sound like when it's all said and done. So make sure that you hire a good mixing engineer. Now, mixing engineers can really range in price. They can go from $100 a track up to $1,000 a track. So it just depends on what you're going with and what sound you want to go with and how high up you want to go. It can be pretty expensive for mixing engineers. But the great thing about it is they're literally who's going to make it sound to your greatest potential when it's all said and done. They're going to make all the effects sound great. They're going to make all the instruments sound great. They're going to make all the parts that you work so hard on sound great. So that's the final step, is finding a good mixing engineer. Then everything else from that point on, and finding a mixing engineer is part of your producer's job, but everything else from that point on, you're out. Everything's gone to the producer's end, how to get the album out and stuff. So you as an artist don't need to worry about how to get to the next step unless you're producing it yourself, which I recommend starting out when you're producing yourself. If you have an idea of the music business and how to get your stuff out there and how to do CD Baby or Ditto Music, there's several things out there to get your stuff put onto streaming sites and be able to release your stuff so people can buy it digitally. So if you've done your research into that and you understand how that works, it's good to be your own producer. I would highly recommend that because you get production rights as well on your releases. So if it does take off, and I hope it does, if it does take off for you to a mainstream level when you're making that album, you get a lot of extra money out of doing that with being the producer rights in your name. So I think that's everything for this week. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you like it. I hope you subscribe to the channel, guys. It really helps me out if you subscribe, and share the video if you have anybody else that would like to do the music business and they want to learn as well. So I'm here to help you guys. I'm here to learn from you as well. So if you want to comment at the bottom anything that you think I did wrong or did right in this video, or anything I missed, please comment about it. I'll talk about it in the next video. Also, make sure to hit the little bell, smash it if you want, and that little bell will notify you that my next video is posted and you can watch the next video. Hope to be more informative coming through. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Lance_Chandler or on Twitter at Lance_Chandler. If you want to, go watch the video before. It talks about how to start your music career. And if you want to watch the first video, it gives a little bit of my background and it's kind of cool. That's the first video I posted. So I'll see you in the next video, guys.